All right, everyone, this is Mr. Wyrick, and I'm here today to go through the second part of the notes with you. Got everything hopefully fixed from the first part, so let's see if we can get this kind of worked out. So again, from the first part, if you need to go back and watch that video, you can go back and watch that video. So these are things that we need to put in Desmos, and we need to make it to where we can see exactly what's going on. So you go through the assignment, and I do have the assignment posted correctly this time. And it has a bunch of wait times. So you go through company A, they're 3 minutes early, 1 minute late, 2 minutes late, 4 minutes late, 1 minute early, 2 minutes early. You'll need to take these. There's 20 entries for company A and 20 entries for company B. And you need to enter those into their own lists in Desmos. And I've done that, and I'll show that to you here in just a bit. So when you do this, in order to differentiate between the early and late times, you need to make sure that those early times are negative and the late times are positive. That's going to give you the same graph that I'm going to show you here in just a bit. And what you were supposed to do yesterday is try to figure out what would be some good reasons to go for A, what would be some good reasons to go for B. So if I pull up my Desmos, and I'll kind of put this on, and I'll make it to where you can kind of look behind me at what's going on. So this is my Desmos here, and you can see I've got my box plots, and I'm looking at my mean and median, and my median for A is 2, and my mean is going to be 2.15. For B, my median is 3, and my mean is 2.95. Hopefully you can kind of see that here on the video. So what does that mean for us? And you need to take some time and do questions 1 and 2 on that page, the delivery problem page. You can either put it there in the PDF, or you can just do it on notebook paper. We're going to turn this in on Tuesday. So why would you pick company A? Why would you pick company B? And if you're looking at it, company A has a potential to be earlier, and their mean time is faster, but they also have the potential to be later, and their data is very spread out, and company B's is more compact. They're always late, and they're a little bit later than company A, but their data is very compact, so they're very reliably in this very short amount of time. So we're going to use that information today to look at what we call variance, which is a measure of the spread of data, and then the standard deviation. So hopefully you can kind of pause this video and go through some of these calculations. So what you are supposed to do is get the mean from A, which was 2.15, and go through all of your list of times and put your distance from the mean. And this is just for company A. So for example, number 1 is 3 minutes early. That would be a -3. And that would be a -5.15 for the distance from the mean, because the mean is at 2.15 and it's way over here on the left at a -3. So we have to go all the way back up to 0 and then go 2.15, and we have negative to indicate that it's on the left. So go ahead and go through every single one of those. Some of them are the same. They're written on the back board, I think, still in the classroom, if you get to be in the classroom. But go ahead and pause the video here and go through and calculate every one of those, the distance from the mean. Okay, after you have done all of that, if we are going to find how far away from the mean something is, which that's standard deviation, it's standard deviation from the mean, then we need to average these. So take a second right now, take all of those times that you got put together and add them all together and average them, and what do you find? So pause the video, average those all together. Okay, coming back from that pause where you average those, hopefully you did that correctly. When you add all of these together, because we have some that are negative and some that are positive, they should have added together to make 0. We should have ended up with 0. That's because we have numbers on both sides of the mean. So we have some distances that are negative, some distances that are positive. It doesn't really make sense for what we're doing. So our next slide, I'm on slide number 6 now, if you're looking at the full presentation, is trying to fix the problem. So statisticians for a long time were looking at this. How do we fix this? And they thought about absolute value, But when you get into advanced statistics, you have to be able to do calculus on some of it, and you can't work calculus on an absolute value equation. So the only other way to turn things positive is to go back to what you were using last year. If you remember the parabola, all the positive values get squared, but all the negative values, when they get squared, they turn positive as well. So we are going to use squaring. So you'd go through and you would square every single one of these values. So you find the distance from the mean for each entry on the list, and then instead of averaging those together, you would square every single one of them, which would make them positive. It also emphasizes distance from the mean. So if we were 5 away from the mean, we would square that, we would be 25. If we are 0.5 away from the mean, it would actually get smaller. It would be 0.25. So these are things that kind of emphasize how far and make it look into our nice standard distribution bell curve that we would have. So the very last thing that we're looking at, we squared all of these deviations. So now they're all positive, and we can find the mean of those. The only problem is when we square minutes, because that's our label for what we're doing here, we get square minutes, which is not something that really makes sense for what we're doing, okay? So this measurement is called the variance. You take all of the distances from the mean, you square every single one of them, and then after you have squared them, you find the average. That's the variance. That lets you know how far to each side of the mean all of the data is going to be in. That's our variance. Once you take the square root of that, that will take our label from minutes squared back down to just minutes, and then we have exactly what we're looking for. We have our standard deviation. Now, make sure to look at slide number 9, because slide number 9 shows on there, you need to use the standard deviation of P and the variance P of whatever it is that you're using, because that's the standard deviation of population, the variance of the population. It's going to do the math the way that we just went through, okay? So I'm going to let you depend on the calculator for this, but I'm going to pull my Desmos back up. And again, I'm going to let you kind of look at this. When you do the standard deviation here, again, we want the standard deviation of the population, the variance of the population. And we can see our variance on A is 9.425, very big, very spread out. We can see our variance for B is 3.045, more compact, more close together. And then our deviations, our standard deviation, meaning within that first standard deviation, that's where most of these deliveries are going to fall. The standard deviation for A is 3.07 minutes. So this is somebody who's, it's harder to plan around maybe, because they can go 3 minutes to either side of that typical mean time of 2.15. On B, we get a lot less in our standard deviation. It's 1.74. So it's a lot more closely concentrated around the mean, because remember, standard deviation is calculated from the mean. The last thing that I need you to do, and again, this is something that we'll talk about again, we will go over, but you need to finish up part 2. Write a report. This needs to be like a paragraph long, and we will kind of go over this at the beginning of class on Tuesday and get that turned in. Now, the other thing that we need to know, if you failed your test, the test grade should be in Skyward for pretty much everyone. If I had to pick up your test late, or if you were still trying to finish late, your grade may not be in there just yet. But for that grade, if you failed, there is a Delta Math assignment, and you have until the end of the day on Wednesday to do that Delta Math to try to help fix your grade. Remember, I'm going to be looking at percentages on this, not just did you complete it or not like I do on the regular Delta Math. This is your makeup test. So you need to go through it. You need to make sure you understand what you're doing. And if you're not there yet, make sure you come into tutorials, and I'll try to give you some help going through some of that stuff before you just try to jump in with both feet. That should get your test back to where you need it to be. Hopefully this is everything you need for today, and have a great weekend. Don't forget no school on Monday for Labor Day.